Hey, everybody, welcome to another service pack. I hope this finds you well and safe and not going absolutely bonkers as you realize that we've got maybe another month or more of this experience to look forward to. Uh, this week, we start a new series. We're going to have the same kind of thing that we have in weeks past, where you're going to hear some updates from Dar. We got some music, different kind of meditation today, a cool little video thing. I think we've done it before at church. And then a talk for me, an interview actually, which I think will be really cool. But anyway, I want to play with this idea of the Great Reset. This pandemic that we're all dealing with is an unwelcome guest for everybody, and it has pushed the limits for all of us. And I'm thinking to myself, how can we capitalize on this unwelcome guest to make the most out of a bad situation? Not to silver lining this thing, not to say, okay, well, this is why it happened, nothing like that, but just to recognize that it's presenting with for us changes. And as Richard Rohr pointed out in his most recent daily devotional thing, that change really represents death. And because it represents death, it also represents resurrection. And so, this time where we have experienced the death of routine, the death of our normal lives, in some cases, the death of a job, the death of a hope for some kind of future, at least not or beyond the immediate future. Um, this represents an opportunity for growth as well. And so we're going to take a look at a series of subjects and ideas over the next few weeks that deal with this. And today we're going to be talking about relationships and relational health. And what have you learned through this time about where your key relationships are and their health continuum? And I'm interviewing a crosswalker who also happens to be a psychologist. And she's going to help us get a different way to think about relational health and things that we can do to make them healthier. So that's what we got on for you today. I think it's going to be good. So let's just hop to it. Thanks for coming.
Happy Sunday, Crosswalk, or maybe it's Saturday night you're choosing to check in with us. And I'm glad you're taking time to find out still what's going on at Crosswalk and also to get connected. We hope you had a great Easter Sunday, and we hope you all stayed in and stayed safe and stayed well. I want to remind you, if you have kids, to join in on Sunday mornings with Kids Connect Moment on the CrossWalkNapa.org website. The kids get together on there and get connected with each other and also with the teachers. So if you have little ones, this is a great opportunity for them to get connected together on Sunday mornings and get a little sense of normalcy back in their life. And then also want to remind you about Virtually Together. This is on Wednesdays. We're doing it at 12 noon and at 7 p.m. at night. And we're doing a series right now called Embracing a Life of Meaning. So if you're looking for a group to get connected with, this would be a great one. All you have to do is drop us an email at info@crosswalknapa.org, and we'll send you an invite for that. And then ladies, next Sunday, we're going to be doing Fuel, Fellowship, Unity, Encouragement, Love, and Laughter. It's our women's ministry. We're just going to get it together and check in with each other and see how everyone's doing, have a little time of devotion. So hope you'll join us for that next Sunday at 11:30. And then also want to remind you that if you want to get connected with any of the groups here at Crosswalk, all you have to do is send us an email at info@crosswalknapa.org, and we'll get you connected with any of the groups that we're hosting. We've had to do this because there's been some issues with people jumping in on Zoom meetings and showing inappropriate stuff, so we can't make them open to everyone on our Crosswalk Connection email list. So we're doing it this way. So just drop us an email, let us know which group you want an invite to, and we'll send you the code so you can just sign in and be part of that group. And then I also want to remind you that there are 3 ways that you can support Crosswalk, and we really do need your support right now. There's, of course, lots of expenses going on still, even though the doors are closed. We still have lots of things we're doing. So you can give online through the Crosswalk website. You can go onto that website, and there's a little folder for giving, and it'll tell you, give you a link to get right in there and do it, and it connects you into our Realm database program, so you can control whatever you want to give in there. And then you can also give by text message using your debit card or your credit card, but you can also give by mail. We do get some checks in the mail, so there is always that option as well. You can send a check in to show your support for Crosswalk and all the things that are going on around here. But I just want to celebrate with you and hope you all had a great Easter last Sunday and you spent time together and realized the importance of Easter is really about being together for Easter. And hope you stayed in and you stayed safe and you stayed well. We miss you all. Can't wait to be back together with you again and hope to see you all soon. God bless you.
So clearly Something's coming. I can feel it. Something's always coming, I guess. Some kind of storm rolling in, always threatening. This looks like another big one. My dad always said, a man's got to be ready for anything. You do the work, you hunker down, you take care of what's yours. A man don't run when the storm's coming. That's what he said. You be strong, you be the mountain, you don't move. He was a mountain, all right. Then he was gone. Sometimes mountains fall. The storm hits, the waters come up fast. Mountains can crumble and slide right off into the sea. I've seen it happen. I'm no mountain, and I'm not standing out here on my own, Dad. I found something stronger. God is my refuge. I don't run away, but I do run to Him. He shows up every time. He helps when it gets bad. Maybe this storm will miss us. Maybe not. Let it come, whatever it is. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not even going to try to handle it on my own. I've seen what God can do. He is the storm sometimes. He's all the strength I need. He's the real mountain. I won't move as long as I'm with Him. So I'm sticking with Him, Dad. He is God.
Ashes rise from this trouble I have found, and the rubble on the ground I will rise. Knows He who is in me is greater than I will ever be, and I will rise. Yes, He who is in me
So you wouldn't know this if you just took a cursory poll of most churches in the United States and most churches throughout history, which have all been mostly led by men, because men have been in charge of the church. But actually, the Christian faith at its earliest stages was strikingly and marvelously equitable when it came to men and women, as much as it could be in the first century. I mean, that's a tall order. At a time when women were literally treated as property, we need to respect what is happening in the life of Jesus and his followers and how he did the best he could to communicate respect, equality, and even equity. The Apostle Paul, who sometimes gets a really bad rap because some of his letters just make him out to be just this pig, male chauvinist pig, telling women to keep silent and all that. But actually, if you do your homework, you'll find out that that was for a very specific context in a church conflict situation back in one town. While he's telling this one church to do this, he has no problem allowing a woman to really be the pastor of a church far north from that community where he told women to keep silent. So Paul was this guy who, I'll talk more about this in subsequent weeks, but he had his mind radically shifted about gender roles and what healthy relationships looked like. And in the book of Ephesians, which is attributed to him, he probably didn't write it, even though it says at the beginning that he wrote it. We know through linguistic stuff that probably it was disciples who wrote in his name, which that was a normal practice back in that day and age. And in this particular book, letter, he writes about marriage. And he starts off just before Ephesians chapter 5 saying, husbands and wives, you are to love one another. And then he kind of expands on it, and a lot of people have taken this historically to create these gender roles where men are really above women and all this. But this is the gist of what Paul is saying. He says, wives, you are to submit to your husbands as Christ did God, and or as believers are to Christ, and husbands, you are to love your wives as Christ loves the church. And so that's where you get this hierarchical kind of thing. But really what Paul is saying there, first, he's saying something to women. He's actually addressing women, which in and of itself, it's hard for us to get this because of where we live. But in and of itself, that was a statement of equality. He's saying to women who are listening to this, you matter enough to be talked to. I recognize you are in the audience, and that speaks volumes. They had a right to hear it. They were there present with the other believers. And then what he goes on to say here, he's giving them a voice. He's instructing them as people rather than ordering them. He's inviting them into the conversation. But in the balance equation here, where he says, husbands, you're to love your wives as Christ loved the church. Wives, you should submit to your husband as the church loves Christ. Really, in this equation, at a time where women were, again, chattel and didn't have near the same amount of human rights as men, listen to what Paul's saying. He's saying to husbands, you're supposed to mutually love one another, to help each other, become your best self. That's the essence of what's happening here. But what Paul is really saying to husbands is, if anybody's got to lay down their life, it's going to be you, men. You are the ones who have the power to do something. And I'm asking you out of love for your wife and out of love for God, to even lay your life down for your bride. That's a beautiful thing to say. So Paul, this guy who sometimes is read as this, horrible hierarchical chauvinist pig, he actually is a champion of women. And even in this passage, which has been so poorly translated over the years, even in this situation, we actually see that Paul is for equality and equity in the relationship. But to help us understand what this means today and how we can have healthier relationships today, I've asked to have a conversation with a crosswalker who knows a thing or two about this. Now, Aaron Findley is a psychologist and has been with Crosswalk now for over a year, I think. And we look forward to this. I think you're going to get some real gems out of this, and I'll be with you to follow up in just a minute.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do this.
Okay.
So I am here with Erin Findley, who is a friend and colleague and happens to be a psychologist in Napa, working with lots of people with a fairly new approach to therapy called EFT. So Erin, tell us what in the heck is EFT?
So EFT stands for emotionally focused therapy, and the purpose of EFT is to strengthen the underlying attachment bond between the members of a couple so that any disruptions, because there's no way to eliminate conflict entirely from a day-to-day relationship, but so that when those moments come up, there's a foundation of being seen, being accepted, being loved, being understood that's unshakable. And what that does is it helps people ride through those conflicts much more quickly and with fewer disruptions and repair it fully at the end. So yeah, that's kind of the bird's eye view.
Okay, and contrast it a little bit with other approaches to working with people and marital health stuff.
Sure. So when you're doing couples therapy from a different approach, for example, a cognitive behavioral approach, you might have a situation where somebody's saying something to their partner and the therapist might ask them to reword it, or might ask them to use different language, or ask them to use sort of an opening phrase that they've agreed on. But the problem is that doing techniques like that don't address the underlying issue, which is attachment insecurity. So if I'm in a relationship with someone and I'm not 100% sure that they've got my back in that moment, I'm not talking about even overall, but in that moment, if I'm feeling a little shaky, then my reaction to them is not going to be the most loving I can possibly be. And it comes out in a couple of different ways, right? I might get a little sharp. I might get critical. I might get withdrawn. I might pull back. I might just not engage or go hop onto my phone or something. And so with a behavioral approach, if you say the nice words like, so tell me about your day, right? You can say that in any number of ways, right? You can say, oh, so tell me about your day. And you can hear the openness and curiosity and interest in that phrase. And there's no built-in undertones. But if I say, so tell me about your day, right? I bet you tensed up when you heard me say that. As would I if I heard that, right? Because there's an underlying emotional message that isn't the words, okay? And so when you're focusing on the behaviors, the words and the behaviors are only as controllable as what's conscious, and they're only as controllable as a person is able to manage their emotional state inside. So rather than trying to go from sort of the top down, EFT goes from the bottom up, okay? So instead of shifting the words, which is kind of that top level, we're going to shift the emotion underneath so that you and I know we are on the same team here, right? You and I know that we are, good together, that we're working together, that, we've got the same goals for our relationship, right? And when that happens, right, then I can send a message of love and care to you, or you can send it to me without having the overtones or undertones of reactivity. Because those are not so easy to control. They happen really fast, really fast.
Yeah. Okay. So in my world, the way I'm understanding that is there is value in looking at the mechanics of things and how we say things and how we put together phrases that are going to be less problematic than other ways.
Mhm.
However, what I'm hearing is what EFT is about, is recognizing that long before the mechanics of conversation, there's stuff beneath that. This connectivity thing, this feeling accepted, loved, safe, is really where it must begin. That's the
Yes.
foundation for the
Yes.
rest to come.
Yes. So so I don't know if you are familiar with the hand model of the brain. This is the hand of model of the brain. Okay, so we have the outer layer, which is the prefrontal cortex, right? This is the thing that was most recently developed, right? This is where the seat of logic is. This is where our ability to reason is, our executive function, okay? Inside the hand, we have the midbrain, the amygdala, which is where our emotions live, okay? And then we have the brainstem, which is controlling the autonomic nervous system. It's everything that's way outside of our conscious control, but keeps us alive and functioning, okay? When we're doing behavioral interventions, we're talking to this part of the brain. When we're focusing on emotional content, we're here and here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that's important to know is when you're making an intervention to the brain, the ones that are oldest gets most precedence. And the things that were developed most recently, evolutionarily speaking, are the ones that get the least precedence. So if I've got a fight or flight going on, this is going to win over this every single time.
Okay.
So if I tell you what words to use and you've got fight or flight going on, why bother?
Gotcha.
So we've got to calm the fight or flight or the freeze, right? And we have to help that happen using the social engagement system. Okay. And that's where we get into the attachment bond. When we get the attachment bond secure and connected and solid in a moment of fear, then that moment of fear starts to dissipate and the person can move up more into the prefrontal cortex and make different choices about behavior. But the further down you go, the more outside of awareness the behavioral choices become.
Okay. So right now we're all trapped inside with each other with COVID-19, which for some people is a wonderful gift from God, and we finally get the time we've been longing for, and we're working our puzzles and playing our games and binging on Netflix. And yet I'm guessing that for some folks, this is a very challenging time because their buttons are being pushed. Everything is sort of in limbo. We're not quite sure where things are going to settle out. Maybe we've got some economic pressures, just a lot of unknown on the horizon, which adds to the stress of the home. And so I'm wondering, what can you offer? What are some valuable tips, helps from EFT that could help people get through this and beyond?
Yeah. So the first thing to recognize is that you and your partner and your family members, whoever you're living with, you all have a level of fight or flight going, even if you're not conscious of it. If you're not conscious of it, what that means is there's probably a little bit of freeze going on, right? So that freeze can sometimes be in, show up in a way of like, oh yeah, no, this is fine. When in fact, it's really not, and it's really not. And if you give yourself a minute to sit down and really think about it and feel about it, you will find that you're actually really maybe not as okay as it seems on the surface. But so the first recommendation, of course, is to be compassionate with yourself and your loved ones, because we're all more on edge than we would like to be right now. The second thing is slow down, okay? So the minute you start to feel anything happening where tension is ramping up, take a breath, slow down, okay? And you can even say that to your partner. You can say, hey, I feel like things are picking up right now in a way that I know doesn't go where we want it to go. Can we just slow down and take a breath? Make it a team effort rather than you need to slow down, because that's going to just make the other person mad. So can we slow down? Can we take a breath? We're having a hard time with this. The more you bring in the we, this is number 3, the more you bring in the we, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to be on a team sooner rather than later, okay? Number 4, speak from your own experience rather than talking about what the other person is doing. So instead of saying, Pete, I hate the fact that you're talking to me like such a jerk, right? Which I've never heard you do, but you get my point. Instead of saying that, focus on your own experience. Wow, that really hit me in a bad way. Can we slow down, right? So instead of telling you what you're doing, which, by the way, has my own assumptions embedded in it, right? I'm telling you what I'm experiencing. I'm feeling sad. Wow, that comment really hurt, right? And then have a moment to check in. Let's see, what else can I offer? As part of being compassionate to each other, make sure that you reaffirm that your desire is to not hurt each other, even if it happens, because again, that place of desire is the beginning of a connection. It's the beginning, it's a building block, right? If we both have the desire not to hurt each other, even if we're stomping all over each other's toes and we're not sure how to do it differently, at least we can agree that that's not what we want, right? And when we agree on that, now we have a building block, right? The other thing right now is particularly right now, as we're all sort of under each other's skin, in each other's space, is to check your assumptions. So if I see you over there on your phone, right, and I'm wanting to have a conversation with you, but you're on your phone scrolling on Facebook or whatever, and I assume that you're, more interested in Facebook than me, then that's not going to help my sense of feeling connected to you. And one thing that I have power over is to be able to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm noticing that you're on Facebook right now, and I was kind of hoping for a chance to connect. Do you have the time and energy right now to take a minute to be with me, right? And maybe the answer is yes, and maybe the answer is no. If the answer is no, then again, respond with the desire. I would love to connect with you right now, but I don't, I'm too anxious. I can't bring myself to be available to connect right now. It's not because I don't love you. It's not because I don't want to, right? So even if you're saying no, embed the messages of love in that no. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. I was thinking on a couple different ways, or a couple different levels here. Sort of some how-to stuff. So how do we foster this kind of foundation? And I'm thinking about a spectrum. So how does an already fairly healthy couple, how do they foster this in this time in ways that they might not be thinking about because the fight or flight or freeze thing that this is putting on us. And then also, if you can speak into, what if coming into this this COVID-19, sequestering, what if things were already kind of rocky and weren't real connected? What can be done now that might be able to foster it, which then could, potentially lead to something more beautiful down the road?
Sure. There's a ton that can be done right now, and that's, the miracles of modern technology. They're really helping us out here. So for a couple that's fairly healthy that wants to strengthen their own relationship and have some different ways to navigate things, there's a couple of resources that I could recommend. One is, there's a book called Hold Me Tight, The 7 Conversations for a Lifetime of Love by Sue Johnson. And when you post this, I can send you a link so that you can post it. It's available as an audiobook. It's available on Kindle. It's available in every format you could possibly want. And it gives information about how attachment bonds work, and 7 conversations that you and your partner can take yourselves through in order to strengthen your attachment bond. If you want a little bit more guidance, there's also an online version of the Hold Me Tight course, and it's available for half price right now. Sue Johnson, who is the founder and developer of EFT, and her organization have made it available for half price. And that is a super crazy deal. It's like $99 American. It's 140 Canadian. And it takes couples through the 7 conversations plus the learning about attachment over an 8-session course, which you can do in 8 days, you can do in 8 weeks, however you want to structure it. It's got video examples and exercises to try, so that's a little bit more in depth. And I've taught Hold Me Tight courses before, and they're fantastic. So this is definitely a great way, especially for a couple that's already healthy but wanting to really enrich their relationship. The next layer would be couples therapy. And because of technology like Zoom, we're able to do telehealth remotely for couples therapy without any issues. So even if you and your spouse are in a different location, right? So let's say, I'm working with someone who has a spouse who's deployed, right? I would be able to get them both on Zoom, and we could, as long as we could find a time, depending on where they're deployed, right? Then we would be able to all 3 get together on Zoom or VC or any number of other telehealth video conferencing programs to be able to do couples therapy. And it's quite effective even when, couples are struggling. So there's an organization, an international organization for emotionally focused therapists. I'm a member of that. There's also a Northern California organization of therapists who are trained in emotionally focused therapy. And I can't think of any of my colleagues who aren't at this point offering some version of telehealth. So it's really a question of helping the people who need the help find someone who feels like the right fit, because finding a therapist is so personal. I like to think of it like, picking your favorite underwear, for lack of a better term, right? You've got to make sure that not only does it look like it's going to function well and be attractive, but also when you wear it, it's got to feel good, right? Sorry, that's a little intimate, but it's the best example I can think of, really.
Yeah.
And people who have the right education but aren't the right personality fit aren't the right therapist. There's so many to choose from. I, of course, am one of them, but I'm not the only one by any stretch. And any therapist worth their salt is going to want you to find somebody who not only has the right education and the right skills, but also is the right fit.
Sure.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I mean, that's true with pastors and churches as well.
Exactly.
Finding the right fit makes all the difference. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And just, if we were to extend beyond the marriage relationship, I'm connecting dots with other family relationships as well. But I assume the same kinds of things, same principles apply toward parent-child relationships. Is that correct?
The same kinds of things apply towards parent-child relationships. There is a difference, though, in the sense that if you're talking about a family therapy, right, you've got the parental unit where both parents, assuming a partnered couple for parents, right? If obviously there's more complexity if you're talking about a multi-household situation, but even that, it's doable. It's just more complex to describe. Mm-hmm. But those parents both take care of each other and love each other, right? And that's their jobs, right? For the parents to take care of each other and to love each other. It is the parents' responsibility to take care of and to love the children. It's the children's responsibility to love the parents, but not to take care of them, right? And this is where some of the upside down role reversal can happen if children are actually asked to take care of the emotional needs of the parents. So with family therapy, really what you're wanting to do is strengthen the attachment bond between the parents and help them support each other when things get difficult. Help open up the space for the parents to be able to hear the children, and for the love and the care to flow towards the children in a way that doesn't invalidate the children's experience, right? Which doesn't mean saying yes to everything, right? I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, if I'm validating what you're saying, then I must be agreeing. And the answer is no. Those are two vastly different things. I could say, little Bobby, I understand how you might feel that way when your friend Joe says mean things. I can understand how you would feel that way. I kind of understand how you might want to hit something. That doesn't mean I'm saying, yes, go ahead and hit it for him, right? It's being able to help the parent be emotionally present for the kiddo so that the parent can help the kiddo self-regulate and therefore move out of that brain stem and midbrain back up into their ability to think.
Really good stuff. Yeah,
and with
really good
adult
stuff.
Kids and parents, it's true. It's a little bit more like a couple relationship, a romantic relationship, in the sense that there's more sort of power equality. But even still, there is a little bit of that parent to child, child to parent inequality in terms of the taking care of department, at least until the parents, become elderly, and that's the child taking care of the parent. It's also true that, we have attachment bonds with everybody we meet. And that attachment bond might simply be, you're a human and I'm a human and we're humans together, right? But in business, this also, particularly people who are working together in business, this totally applies, and doubly so with more complexity for family businesses. And a lot of what we're dealing with right now, culturally speaking, outside of COVID-19, is linked to our differences in political views, and how do we get on the same team as a people, as a country, when we have such differing views, right? But we have an attachment bond right now, and that attachment bond is stressed. So even on a cultural level, we have attachment bonds. So it's kind of impossible to get away from attachment bonds because humans are social creatures.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, really helpful insights. And I appreciate you taking us, into different stages of child-parent relationships as well. Because I've noticed that you're right. Until our parents are at an age where they really need help, and the role shifts a little bit. But even then, parents are always parents, and
Right.
and we
Right.
kids, still want our mommies and daddies in some
yeah.
way.
I still call my daddy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
Totally.
So, and that's cool just to have permission to see that, and then to honor it and respect it for
because
what it is.
It's always going to be your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
It's always your mom and your dad. Even if you're the one taking care of them in their, elder years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been really good. Thank you very much.
Good. My pleasure.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation that I had with Aaron, and I hope you got some really good tips for how to engage people you are in relationship with right now, so that you might have stronger relationships going forward. I'm sure there was something for everyone if we're paying attention. And so that's really your homework now, is what are you going to do with the information that you have during this great reset moment? Relationships are everything. And so how are you going to health up your relationships in your life right now, not just for now, but going forward, knowing that this is a time of transition and change, and therefore a time of death of old ways with the possibility of resurrection, of new ways, new life to come. To that end, we want to finish our time together with the Lord's Prayer, which is itself a reorienting prayer. It's a prayer that's all about choosing to take on the mind of Christ with Christ's priorities and preferences, giving them over to God and trusting that God has something for us which is greater than ourselves. So let's pray together, and then we can move on with our week. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Peace and grace to you, my friends. Don't forget, Wednesdays at 12 noon and 7 o'clock p.m., I'm hosting a group dealing with the idea of embracing a life of meaning. It's a video-driven series that incorporates some small group discussion stuff. And first week was great. I'm confident the next weeks are going to be great too. So please join in on that. If you haven't signed up for that, just shoot us an email, either me directly or through Crosswalk at info@crosswalknapa.org, and we'll get you the Zoom invite. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.